Hello. So I have a decision to make right now, which is, do I give my talk or do I just let you look at that picture for a while? Look at that. Just look at that. That's crazy. 1890, and look at that. Anyway, so this may be my last opportunity to speak about dime novels here before somebody starts saying, it's Demian talking about dime novels again. So I apologize if any of you have heard any of this before. I'll try to abbreviate some of it, and if you want the longer version, sit with me at lunch. I can talk about this endlessly. So anyway, if you've ever read a dime novel, you'll discover that the plots tend to revolve almost entirely around really improbable coincidences. And so our story here revolves almost entirely around an extremely improbable coincidence, which is that Michael Foyt, Laura Bang, and I were wandering around the dark basements of the library looking for something else, and we stumbled upon this shelf of old decaying books and started looking at them. And I thought, oh, we have dime novels. This is something that's always been vaguely interesting to me, though not something I knew much about. And so that was July 2012. It's just a little over a year later, and dime novel madness has taken hold here. So just a little bit of background. One of the great advantages to being present at the discovery of a forgotten dime novel collection is that you get to say, hey, I volunteer to look through all of these and learn about them and put together an exhibit. So I spent several months reading extensively about dime novels and the related popular literatures of the 19th century. And what it all really boils down to is that the 19th century brought two important things. It brought technological change, which made mass production of printed materials even easier than ever before, and it brought increasing literature, which meant that there was now a market to produce stories entirely for profit, which meant that they were designed entirely to please their readers, which meant that anything goes. So this started in England in the very early part of the 19th century with penny dreadfuls like Barney the Vampire down there, which were sold in penny installments, and you had to collect them all and put them together into the book. This then evolved into story papers, which were regular newspaper format papers, but that contained installments of serialized novels and short fiction. And then this eventually led to, in 1860, the first dime novel, which led to many thousands of dime novels. And the idea here was, we've been doing this installment thing for a long time, but let's give them a complete novel at a really comfortable price point. It was a big hit. And it eventually led to the Nickel Weekly, which cut the price in half and added color and giant crabs, because you can't have enough giant crabs. So anyway, after doing all of this research, this tied into my core obsession. I love bibliography. I love seeing the relationships between things. It's not enough for me to read a book. If that book has a number on the spine, I need to know what the other books in that series are, and I want to know more about the author and what else the author wrote, and so forth. This is enough of an obsession that I've got my own website devoted to series fiction of a different type, which I can also talk to you about later. But anyway, I thought, this is really an underrepresented literature. It's fascinating, there's a lot of it, and if you go on the internet and do searches, you find not a lot. A few libraries have put some cover images up. You can read scattered things about some of the authors, but there's no comprehensive bibliography. Why is there no comprehensive bibliography? So since I've been reading up about dime novels for so long, I knew some names of people who wrote about them, and I thought, oh, I'll email these people. Maybe they're friendly. And it turns out they're all very friendly, and they're all very happy when somebody emails them about dime novels. I've gotten this disease now. But anyway, I started asking, has anyone thought about an online bibliography? Has anyone done a bibliography? And they all said, oh, you should have known Eddie LeBlanc. Eddie LeBlanc was the editor of a journal called Dime Novel Roundup, among other things, and he spent 70 years of his life compiling bibliographies of dime novels. That's his bibliography over there on the right. It's currently living at the Library of Congress, where it's now inaccessible. Well, maybe today things are back to normal, but for a while it's been inaccessible. But anyway, he spent 70 years compiling complete lists There were several attempts made to do something with this, but none of them got off the ground. And to make a long story short, after making the right connections, I got in touch with his family, got permission to put those online here at Villanova, and so that is what we are now doing. That is the dimenovels.org project, or the Edward T. LeBlanc Memorial Dime Novel Bibliography. So the goal of this project is to create comprehensive online bibliographies of all of the major dime novel series and all of the authors who contributed to those series. One of the beauties of this, it's so frustrating with stupid copyright law. Why can't we just copy everything? Well, with dime novels, everything's out of copyright. The last original dime novel was published in 1915. So not only can we have a comprehensive bibliography, but we can link to all of the text. We can have this huge body of literature. We can have all of it for free, and we can share it with all of our friends, if we can just get hold of it and scan it. That's the hard part. But and also, of course, I think it would be really useful for this data set to be made reusable so that unforeseen uses of it can be found going forward. So there are obviously challenges here. First of all, the LeBlanc bibliographies are wonderful, and I certainly don't want to say anything negative. I mean, I wish I had known LeBlanc. I admire his work, but he was working for 70 years with a typewriter, which meant that when he revised a list, he would have to retype the whole thing. So over the years, typographical errors have accumulated. He owned a lot of different typewriters as well. This picture here shows the output of one of my less favorite of LeBlanc's typewriters, where the letters kind of don't line up with one another. And so OCR is not really an option. There's a lot of work to be done just to make these things more usable. Additionally, dime novels are a difficult domain to represent in any way because everything went. They are crazy. One book could be published under 6 different titles and attributed to 3 different authors. One author might actually be 20 different people writing under a house name. Or, a real author might have 6 different names attributed to them, and then other authors would come along and pretend to be that author. So everything is sort of fluid and confusing and interrelated. There's just a lot to do. There's a lot to map. It's never going to be perfect, but it's a lot of fun. So this brings me to the fact that, as I say, this bibliographic compulsion has been part of my life for a long time. For my other bibliographic project, I actually wrote open source software, which is still not at 1.0, but has been under development for 15 years. It's a terrifying thought. I've been working on this for 15 years. But the current generation of this is basically just a MySQL database and then a Zen Framework 2 front end to that, which models a lot of the important relationships that you find in this kind of material. Items to series, different versions of items, translations into other languages, authors with pseudonyms, and things like subject headings and whatever else you want to throw at it. There's also a social layer to this software so that people can create an account and then make a record of which items they own within a series or write reviews and interact with one another in some sense. So all of this is up on GitHub, and if anybody wants to help join in the fun, there's lots of work still to be done. But this is also powering dimenovels.org. So moving forward to our strategy for actually doing something with all of these parts, one important thing is to try to capture existing identifiers for some of the things that we are working with as we're entering data into this system. So, for example, one decision that we made was to try to use names from the Library of Congress authorities when possible, so that if we're working with an author, we have some hope of finding that author in other systems. In reality, this proves not always to be feasible because, as I say, this space is insane, and the Library of Congress catalogers have not always captured things correctly. For example, you'll find a pseudonym that has birth and death dates attached to it that come from one of only half a dozen people who wrote under that name, et cetera, et cetera. But again, the idea is get some data into the system and have the ability to hook into more data down the road. Just capture it now as we go. There are probably about 60,000 titles in the LeBlanc bibliographies, maybe more. It takes a lot of bodies just to get those typed into the system because, as I say, OCR is not really feasible here. Fortunately, we've gotten quite a few volunteers. At least one of them is in this room. And then it becomes a matter of managing your volunteers. Find things that are relatively easy and straightforward to get people started, train them up on that, and then introduce them into the deeper mysteries of dealing with dime novel bibliography. And as I say, everything start small and fill in the details as you go. I feel that the reason that this did not come online sooner is because it is hard. And you could spend years and years coming up with a plan to do it and then never execute that plan. I think in general at Villanova, our success stories have come from just doing something and then building upon the initial momentum of that. And so, if nothing else comes of this, I hope you're very interested in dime novels now, but if nothing else comes of this, I say be fearless in your projects and do something, show some results as quickly as you can because success breeds success. So what sort of success have we seen so far? It's been just over a year since we found the books. We've been online a lot less than that. But we're already approaching about 40 completed series entered out of the 900 plus in the LeBlanc bibliographies. And I'm finding that we're actually not just entering the data, but improving it as we go because we now have access to all kinds of things that LeBlanc did not. He traveled all over the country, went to libraries, looked in special collections, but now we have Google Books, and you can search for an obscure series title, and you can find the original publisher's advertising in a trade journal from the late 19th century, and it answers questions that were just really hard to find the answers to before. So, we all have mixed feelings about Google Books, but in this case, thank you, Google. You have helped us. And speaking of Google, the other thing that's become really apparent is that the way that the GBDB bibliography software that I've written works, there are a whole lot of internal linkages, and Google loves internal linkages. So just putting this software up there, the crawler finds it, the crawler is happy, and suddenly we have really high Google rankings for all of these obscure topics that nobody has covered before. And so people are finding us. Within a week of going live, when we only had maybe 2 or 3 series up, I got an email from somebody who was renovating an old house and found one of the books in the wall and didn't know what it was. As I say, this is all about weird coincidences. But then just this morning, I got an email from a scholar who is writing a book and wants to research a particular author and found information in our system that was not available anywhere else and was very excited about this. So we're getting results immediately. It may be in a small, weird, obscure space, but everything's global now, and there's value in putting up niche things because the person who's interested in that niche will find you. And that's what libraries are here for, to some extent. So I'm very pleased with this, and I hope that we keep up the progress. So if you're interested in more information on this, you can go see our bibliography. I admit that the user interface is not beautiful. That's not my strength. I hope you find the data to be beautiful, and we'll work on making it prettier as we go. I also have an online exhibit on dime novels, which is designed to accompany the physical exhibit, which I hope you will look at if you have not already. I'm very happy about the collection that we've managed to grow. I didn't even mention that during the talk, but as a result of getting into this space, we received a very generous donation of a huge, nice collection of dime novels, which beautifully complemented our crumbling, awful collection of dime novels that started the whole thing. So we're able to show you some real treasures out there. And then, as I say, GBDB's on GitHub. Our digital library has a whole bunch of dime novels that you can read online, and you will want to, trust me. And you can email me. I'm always happy to talk about this.